let's talk about the reality with your team. You're going to have to weight the practice, the people, and the patients, the 3 P's of your practice. And it is your job as the owner. So let's put our owner hat on right here. As the owner of your practice, and in many cases, you're an owner operator, right? You're a practicing clinician and you had the owner hat on. You have to have a bias towards the practice. And I'm going to tell you about what that means here in just a few minutes. I think the thing that isn't being talked about is that we have to take care of the patients. We have to take care of the people, our team. But if we don't take care of the practice and the practice dies, everything dies. And I think we need to look at this with a real business sense. The longer you go without reopening, the greater the chance that you will not reopen. And if you do reopen, the harder the uphill climb is going to be. Like it or not, my opinion is the first mover advantage is in full swing. Those practices that open up sooner, I'm not saying be first out of the gate. Let's not be on the bloody cutting edge and get a bloody nose out of it for whatever reason. But those doctors and practices that are able to mitigate these risks and open up sooner are going to acquire significant market share. I've talked about this on past webinars with emergencies. Booming emergencies in many cities. We're hearing from hundreds of patients across hundreds of market areas. They can't find a dentist that's open. They're calling our practices and saying, I've called 15 practices. You're the first one that's actually answered the phone. And this is widespread. Those that are prepared for this new world are going to capture the lion's share of all those patients. Let's talk about your team. I've put a really stark bullet point on here because I want to make sure that this is understood, because I don't hear this being talked about anywhere. If you reopen your practice and you offer employment to your team and they refuse to come back, they no longer are eligible for unemployment. Unemployment is not a voluntary choice not to work. Unemployment is a safety net for those that, get fired or have turnover or whatever it is, to help those that need the helping. If you voluntarily choose not to come back to work, I want to talk about that in just a second. I recognize that it's going to be hard to get the staff back to reopen the practice. Team members are going to have safety concerns. Team members are going to have an opportunity to get a lot of unemployment by not working. And of course, there's always the X factor of childcare. God, what a mess with the childcare system and the school system right now. I got 3 kids, all 7 and under, and it's like a whirlwind here in the house. And I understand. I want to talk about the bigger concern that I see. And that is what I'm going to call kind of the me versus we attitude of the team members if they're hoping to stay on unemployment. Now, if you've taken the right steps towards your team's safety, your team may be having an irrational concern about their safety. 100% safe is never going to happen. Nobody's 100% safe today. Nobody was 100% safe 3 months ago. 100% safety is never going to happen. Always and never happen. The opportunity to get your staff back is to go through this safety and security plan and you have to realize it's their decision if they want to come back. If you want your staff to come back more than they do, you've lost. You can't want it worse than they do. They have to come back. You do have a legal obligation. I'm no attorney or CPA. I'm just speaking from a business sense. You have a legal obligation to report to unemployment if you have a team member that is refusing to come back. They are choosing not to work. If you don't report that, and the team member themselves have a duty to report that. If they don't report that, there's a 5-letter word that's called. starts with an F. It's called fraud. Unemployment voluntarily, you're not eligible for. You can't quit your job and go get unemployment. That's not how this works. Your staff needs to realize there's a couple paradigm shifts in the market right now. If they choose not to come back to work, they're going to join the 25 million people that are unemployed right now. Their likelihood of getting another job is very slim right now. And their likelihood of getting another job and making the same money they do today is even slimmer. You've got to be prepared. I'm not saying you need to like it. I'm not saying you need to hope for it, but you should be prepared to lose a few of your staff. And you need to have an A-player hiring system in place. Any hope you have to slingshot out of this shutdown is going to be drastically hindered if you feel handcuffed by your team. And I got to say, I think if there's any team members on here tonight, I think it's really short-sighted to turn down your job, and it's about to create a lot of long-term pain for you. The job market is going to be an absolute bloodbath. There's going to be abundance of A players out there, tons of talent to choose from. Salaries are coming down. They're not coming down yet because this thing's going to take time to play out. 3 to 6 months, 12 months from now, salaries for teams are going to be depressed. They're coming down from where they are. If you want to see, I gave a presentation a couple weeks ago on difficult conversations. You can get that in our resource center. I'll send out the link afterwards. Your job as the owner is to create this safety and security plan for your team. How are you going to bring back your A players? Now, when I say A players, I've heard A players are hard to find, or I've heard from some doctors that, man, if they hire 4 people, they end up firing 2 people. It's really hard to find good people. Anybody out there ever said something like that? Man, it's really hard to find good people. Raise your hand if you've heard that before. Lots of hands. Yes. Love it. Oh man, this might be more hands raised than before. Finding great people is really, really hard. We have an A-player hiring system that is second to none. And I want to suggest, and I've talked with my dad, Dr. Ron, about this at length several times. If in your practice you see that, let me give you a symptom. You're trying to hire one person and you end up hiring 3 people in a row because you had to fire 2 of them after 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. If that situation is familiar to you, I want to suggest that maybe your hiring system or your hiring process is a little bit too subjective, or maybe you don't have a system, or maybe your job posting needs tuned up to attract the right kinds of people, right? Maybe there's not the right amount of energy or clarity to the prospects out there that gave them the certainty that you had the place they wanted to apply to. And that A-player hiring system is going to fix that for you. I want to make sure when you bring back your staff that you're doing it profitably. Generally accepted, all in, 25% of your collections should go to labor. Dr. Mike Abernathy had a fantastic write-up a couple weeks ago. Happy to forward it to anybody. Just shoot me an email around comp plans coming out of this. How to comp your staff and how to navigate these comp waters when you're going to have some fluctuations in your collections as you come out of this thing. When it becomes time to reopen your practice, I think it's really important that you have a sit-down meeting or a face-to-face virtual meeting and you lay out everything. Lay out all the safety as much as possible. Open up the floor for discussion and make sure you're answering everything with your team, openly and honestly. I'll say it again. I've said it before. This has been my theme. 2020 is going to be the year that dentists start working on their practice instead of in it. Because in order to thrive coming out of this, the systems and the processes of the business of dentistry are going to have to be in place. I know before this, everybody was running around doing dentistry 24/7, slammed busy. And it's going to be a different paradigm when this thing opens back up. 2020 is going to be the year that this happens. And if you shut down your practice and shut everything down, you've got more of an uphill battle coming out of this than those guys that didn't. Our 2008 recession data shows that practices that shut down had 6 months longer of 38% lower collections. The ADA released 75% of dental practices that declined from 2008 to 2012 bounced back from 1 to 2% a year on average until 2014. Practices that don't streamline their systems are going to end up with lower production and revenue, I don't know, indefinitely. I don't have certainty around when this thing's going to rebound. But I know if you're not focused on the practices and the systems, this is what's going to happen. And it's going to come in a number of flavors. You're going to have significant patient attrition. There's going to be new regulations, new PPE requirements. Unemployment is going to be way up. There's going to be patient financial challenges. Who knows what's going to happen with dental insurers? I don't like to speculate. Warren Buffett had a great quote about people that speculate on interest rates. And I think to speculate on what dental insurance companies are going to do is probably about the same. That says a lot about a person. Navigating this by yourself, my view is if you're a solo practitioner or you've got a couple practices or a few doctors working for you, navigating this by yourself is going to be immensely painful. The best thing if you want to go far is surrounding yourself with really smart people who are going to help you work through these challenges. And that's one of the things I'm going to put in front of you tonight is we're opening up a really, really smart brain trust of people for motivated doctors and practice owners. Like I said before, once these reimbursements come down, I don't see them bouncing back up. The scale and scope of this crisis may be greater than 2008, but one singular thing remains very true. The owners and the doctors that were thoughtful and prudent with running their practices prior to these events have a significant advantage over those who ignored the rules of financial gravity. This is a Keith Cunningham quote. He's a really smart guy. Financial gravity is what we're all dealing with right now. The exact same thing is true 10 years ago as it is today. Those owners and practices that are thoughtful are going to have that first mover advantage. For those docs and owners that have already made the commitment that they're going to slingshot out of this thing, we're going to be opening up our SmartBox Roundtable waiting list tonight to join our exclusive group of leading innovative and smart dentists that are focused on tackling all these challenges. Let's think of it as the easy button. Here in a bit, I'm going to send you a link and you can check it out if you want. If it's right for you, great. I'm going to give you a lot of content between now and then and show you behind the scenes what we're doing. The challenges you face right now are extremely vast. I've talked about them. I don't feel like I need to repeat insurances and reimbursements and PPE, patient attrition, unemployment. And to top that all off, most markets are going to start opening up in 2 to 4 weeks. There's not a huge runway on this thing. This thing is going to be coming, and it's coming pretty fast. The investment that we're going to have in this group is going to be nominal compared to the value that we're going to create with these practices that we're going to be helping them survive and reopen and thrive during this crazy time that we're facing. And I think for you to shoulder this by yourself is pretty ridiculous. We're going to be opening up the waiting list, and it's going to be by application only if you have interest in that here in a little bit. And whether you're a current SmartBox client or not, you've never seen this information before that we're about to go through. This is behind the scenes stuff that we've been working on for several years with some of our top dentists around the country. And we're going to be rolling this out tonight.